Hello, it's Paul Hamilton here from UTB. I wanted to show parents the screen time settings on iPads and iPhones and how you can support your children to create that kind of healthy balance between screen time and no screen time as well. So you can see here that screen time is located down the side of my settings, just under Do Not Disturb, and you can see here that if I click on See All Activity, I can have a really good look at my child's activity on the device and what they're spending their time on. This is a great way of having discussions with your children about what kind of screen time they're having. Are they using creative usage for their iPads, or are they actually just viewing content on their iPads as well? And you can see there that it shows a breakdown of the different activity, and you can look at last week, the week before, and you can kind of see a breakdown of what they're using, the time that they're spending on their iPads. Underneath that, we've got some really powerful settings for parents. Underneath those categories, we've got a user Screentime Passcode. That allows a parent to set a code so that our children are not then editing and altering those times that you've set for your children. So that's a great way of actually creating a little bit of accessibility for you on your child's device. But I want to have a look at these categories underneath the activity tool about how you can kind of encourage that healthy usage of screen time and no screen time. First one is downtime. And this is one of the most powerful tools that we can use on our iPad. We can set downtimes for our children. So we might say, right, in the afternoons from 3 through to 6 p.m. we really want some downtime, and so we can actually place that on our iPads where the iPad can't get used during that downtime section. We can also set the app limits. So by looking at the activity of our children, we might say, well, they're actually doing quite a lot of social networking. In particular, it could be FaceTime and messaging. I'm noticing that there's a lot of activity. They're just spending hours and hours and hours on it. I might like to restrict that for different reasons. So what I can do then is I can select the apps and I can select how much time is okay to spend on those applications before it kind of switches and doesn't allow them to use them anymore. So that's just a really powerful way of kind of having that discussion with your children. I would always do this with my children first. I wouldn't just go in and actually make those settings and not communicate with them. I'd actually have those discussions and maybe set some goals with your children about what is healthy and what is unhealthy, and how can we work together and provide some tools that support you in making those changes in habit. So that's just a great way of actually adding limits to the types of applications that our children are using. Then underneath we can set some communication limits. So we could actually say, right, we don't want our children to be spending time with people that are not in our contacts, so we can actually create some security there as well, which is a really powerful tool. And then the last category, always allowed are certain applications that you might say, I'd like to grant them access to that all the time. So we might actually say there's a certain application there that is okay to have access to the time. It could be, for example, the Measure app where our children have to measure things or something like that. We actually want them having access to those things. So we can actually say always allowed or not allowed. And then finally, probably the most important category, and a category that a lot of parents don't know about, is our ability to restrict the kind of content that our children are being exposed to. And so this is a great way, especially with young children, of saying, hey, I really need to restrict the kind of things or the kind of apps that are allowed. For example, I can restrict the applications, I can restrict the content. And if I just look here at web content, it's got unrestricted access. Well, that's certainly not something that young children should have access to. So I can actually, within my iPad, set those content restrictions up to keep my children safe and not accidentally coming across types of content on the internet that could be damaging to my children, especially my young children. So this content restrictions for privacy settings is one of the most important things that we can do as parents to support healthy screen time, but also protect our children from accessing content either accidentally or deliberately that they shouldn't be viewing online. So that's a really quick look at the different things that we can do. We can also set up screen time for family. So if you haven't had a look at that, you can actually link the difference through our iTunes account, the different devices that are in your family, so that you're actually sharing different applications and you're aware of what's happening regardless across. I think one of the most powerful things, and one of the things you need to do as parents, is set that Screentime passcode up and then have a look and have a chat with your children about what's my current usage, my current activity, and what is a reasonable amount of time that we can set restrictions on our children's iPad that will encourage them to have a really healthy relationship with the device that they've got in their homes. So that's Paul Hamilton here. I hope you found that useful. I'd encourage all parents to jump into the Screentime application and start to really have those healthy relationships and the talks with your children about what is healthy and what is unhealthy. And then hopefully as parents we can model that behavior as well. Paul Hamilton here from UTB, signing off.